Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 9. A really special guest on today, Joey Handball Williams, to talk about the handball club he started here in Detroit and some cool things he's doing for the sport of handball here in the United States of America. Thanks for listening and hope you enjoy. All right, hello everyone and welcome to the Professional People Podcast, episode 9. With my guest today, Joey Handball Williams. Joey and I have been friends for quite a while. Went to grade school together, played some lacrosse, not handball together. And our families have been good friends for a long time as well. And I'm happy to have Joe on. Joe, you want to introduce yourself and tell us how you got the name Joey Handball?
Well, thank you for that introduction, Dan. And hopefully soon we can change the not playing handball together, because I'm still going to try to get you out on the court one of these days.
I'm coming, man. Don't worry.
But yeah, like you said, I'm a lifelong lacrosse player, and for those of you who are familiar with Olympic handball, it's essentially lacrosse but with the soccer ball and on a basketball court. Just to put it as simply as possible, it's one of the most popular Olympic and professional sports in the world, and it's pretty much unknown here in the U.S. So I got into it from watching the Olympics, and I guess the rest is sort of history. Started playing it, made the U.S. junior national team, got to travel to a lot of cool places, and now I'm back home in the Detroit area trying to grow the game here.
Nice. Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience going over and playing for the U.S. national team? How did you get into that, and how was it with your experience going overseas and playing?
Yeah, so it sort of sums up the state of handball in the U.S., because my very first handball game, like an official handball game, was with the U.S. national team. So if that tells you anything about the lack of exposure the sport has, then that says it all right there. So I saw the game in 2012 during the Olympics, and then there was an open tryout for the junior national team in Chicago. So I went, and I was the only person to show up, basically. So by virtue of like having a pulse and being able to throw a ball, I was in the selection pool. And so later, I think a year later, there was a tournament in Sweden that they needed a goalie for. So I managed to go to that, and then that was an extremely inspiring experience. There was like 30,000 kids at this tournament. Like we got to wear like Team USA, and it was just it was a blast. And so that really lit the fire for me. And then I played again in Paraguay with the U.S. national team for a North American, South American tournament, and then went to a few training camps down in Auburn, Alabama, which was formerly the headquarters for the national team. So it was a great experience overall. Got to see. It's interesting because the highest level in the U.S. is nowhere near the highest level in the world, which I think is a unique case in general. The U.S. has so many resources, especially with sports. So to see a sport like handball, which has such global popularity, lack the resources to even have a dedicated league in the U.S. It was a very eye-opening experience.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you too. It's not like we don't know what handball is over here, and we all played in gym class growing up. But where do you think the disconnect is why handball hasn't taken off yet in the United States and it has in Europe?
That's the $1 million question there, Dan. And if I knew the answer to that right now, I'd be driving a much nicer car than I am right now. But I think it has there's a lot of answers that I think play into it. It's a complex problem. First and foremost, there's just no, you can watch an English Premier League soccer game on TV fairly easily, but you'd be hard pressed to ask any American to name a single handball club, despite the fact that organizations like Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain have handball teams that are part of their club. So there is money in the sport. There are these global brands, but the way it's being presented in the United States is just very ineffective. There's no organization. I shouldn't say there's no, but there's I can count them on one hand, the amount of organizations that facilitate handball beyond gym classes, right? And that's for the entire country. Whereas I was playing in Denmark for a small Danish club in 2019. This town was about 15,000 people, and they had more handball players in this small town than in the entire United States. They had more clubs in the small town than probably in the Midwest. I don't want to say the U.S., but it was pretty close to the amount of clubs that the entire country had in just this little town in Denmark. So it's just a lack of organization, a lack of exposure, and a bunch of other stuff, I guess.
So you have that experience playing overseas, and you see how different it is over in Europe versus here.
Mm-hmm.
And you come back and want to make a difference. You start the Detroit Handball Club with your brother Mickey. Tell us a little bit about that experience and what you're going for.
Yeah. So that's it. Sort of evolved. I back things up here. I had no interest really in being involved in handball. Like as I was sort of winding down playing in Denmark, like I was just sort of ready to like wrap it up and say, all right, it's been a good run. But then I come back and just was thinking about the experience I had in Denmark, and just seeing how there's excitement now for the sport because of the 2028 Olympics. We'll have a automatic bid to send an Olympic team. So we'll have to, there'll have to be something that happens. So a combination of all those things, I figured, you know what, I would like to do something to at least display the sport. So you and me actually talked around this time last year about having a big exhibition like match in Detroit at formerly Kobo, now a TCF Center. And I was going to try to pull on the connections I made overseas and get a few of these clubs to come over and just have a preseason tournament, but frame it in a way here in the U.S. that would be very spectacular and professional. But then as I sort of moved along there, I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this thing, I might as well go all in and really like plant the roots. And not the Metro Detroit area, but southeastern Michigan has about 6 million people, and Denmark, which is the best handball country in the world, has that same amount of people. So I figured, you know what, like I could do this little handball circus, or I could try to really establish the sport in this area. So it evolved from that event into trying to create an organization that facilitates the sport in a way that needs to be facilitated, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I remember when we were talking back about a year ago, and we were, preparing the insurance for that event and everything. It was wild to see you had like 6 different pro teams coming in, and it was going to be an event that had never been held in the U.S. like that, correct?
Somewhat, yeah. So there had been, it's kind of interesting. Back in 2008, the French Professional League had their like Final Four championship in Miami. And that was like Fire Festival on steroids. They rented out the stadium where the Heat play, and they had maybe 50 spectators, and people lost like tons and tons of money. Like the head of the French Federation got fired. So that was not a great precedent. And then there was another similar event in Chicago, but that was between the German national team and the Polish national team. So like a little bit more successful. They had a few thousand people, but different than having pro teams. And there were a few differences we were going to try to make sure we had from the Miami event. But
right,
it would have been the first successful event.
There you go. But so you kind of transitioned, and at the same time, you were starting kind of planning the roots on the other things you were doing. And most of the thing that caught my eye is working with kids and trying to introduce them to handball. And this past week, you just posted a video with the Boys and Girls Club. Can you talk a little bit about that partnership and what you're going and doing with them?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is something that's just like got me super fired up recently because, obviously in order to grow the sport, we need the kids to be playing it. And like you said, kids are playing it in gym class, but to have an organization where, the kids can feel like they're competing and not just playing around a gym class is something that we're really trying to develop. We're trying to develop something that a kid will start playing when he's age 5. And then over the years, by the time that kid is, 25, 28, hopefully we'll be a full-on professional club and we'll be playing against the Barcelonas and PSGs. So we got linked up with the Boys and Girls Club, a few months ago. We just basically cold called them. And as luck would have it, the guy who picked up the phone happened to be just a huge like Olympic junkie. Like he loves just staying up till 2 a.m. and watching the Olympics, which is, prime time for handball. That's how I think I got into it. Most people. So the right guy happened to pick up the phone, and we came in, we met with him a few times. He's now actually playing with the club. He's a former D1 track star, and like the dude's an absolute animal. So like, not only is he like, he's helped facilitating it on an organizational side, but he's like, he's fixing to be one of our best players too. So it's like a perfect situation. We're very lucky about that. And so now moving forward, we're going to try to get leagues going at the Boys and Girls Club, both for adults and for children. And then through these leagues, especially on the youth side, I want to be taking kids to Europe as soon as we can. There's plenty of tournaments and just events that are fairly low cost, and based on just my experience, I would just know how to navigate that landscape. And so to bring some of these kids from the Boys and Girls Club to Europe, who many of them have never left Michigan, have never left the city of Detroit, I think can just have an absolute transformational effect. It certainly has on me. Being able to travel and play a sport, and this with lacrosse too, it's a different experience, and it's incredibly enriching and incredibly good for development. So that's the dream. So hopefully 1 year from now we'll be talking about how we've got a bunch of kids playing in Europe. But that's the goal.
That's so awesome, man. And like you said, the 2028 Olympics are going to be in the U.S. So the Dana White of handball, I heard you call yourself on the Renaissance Cowboy podcast.
Oh boy.
He's starting to form these Olympians over there. Look at them. But I think what you're going for is super cool, man. Especially, you guys are headquartered in Detroit, kind of helping the inner city kids, and like you said, giving them an opportunity to travel outside of the country is just awesome. I mean, for us, we played college lacrosse. You got to go, regional travel, and that's super cool in and of itself. But to take them across the sea and go see the different cultures, all while playing a sport and doing something they love and staying active, I think it's super cool, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And we're also trying to do that with the adults too. It's kind of strange. So when I was overseas in Denmark, it wasn't like I was playing for like a professional team. This was like the town's club, right? And in Europe, they have, like, for soccer, for an analogy, they have the English Premier League, and then they have, the league below that and the league below that, and then all the way down to like the 10th division. So you have, in theory, these organizations where, like you and me, for instance, like if I just wanted to continue playing handball or lacrosse even, we would just go play for the Farmington team. And if they were good and won the league, then they can move up and eventually become professionals. So it's interesting that even for adults, once you're done playing college, it's like you're done with, meaningful sports, which is, I think, and also a different opportunity that we can develop through handball, because it's a sport that not only people don't, have any frame of reference for, like it's something that you can play all the way until you're very old. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I heard you talking about that on the Renaissance Cowboy radio hour too. Plug to Hosco there. But I thought that was super interesting how in Europe that they have, when you're out of high school or out of college, you still get to play your sport competitively. And as Americans, we're very competitive people. So I thought it was super surprising that we didn't copy that from their culture.
Right?
Yeah, out of all the things we copied, we don't want to play sports for longer. It's like our main thing.
That and the metric system are just the two things we as Americans said, no. Gosh darn it.
That's funny. Well, you're also, Joe, not only are you doing all this handball stuff, but you're also in law school. Am I right?
Yes. Yep. The University of Detroit Mercy.
doing law school. You're helping out with your mom's family business too, right?
Yeah.
How are you? What are some of your tips and tricks to juggling, doing all these different things and wearing these different hats?
I think the big one would just be living at home because everything's taken care of pretty much. I don't have to sweat too hard about making ends meet and paying bills. I think staying healthy, doing my best to just rest when I need to, which is something I'm pretty bad at, but I know I'm bad at it. At least I know I'm bad at it, so I can like work on it. Taking care of yourself, just keeping the expenses low as low as possible. And I think the big thing, Dan, is I just like really thoroughly enjoy everything I'm doing right now. So it makes it easier when I have, a very long day to just be like, okay, like, I'm going to thank myself in a year, 2 years from now. I'm already thanking myself right now for kind of being a crazy person last year and trying to do this weird, like, handball event. So
Yeah.
just putting yourself out there and working hard and enjoying
Yeah.
what you do.
I think, like you just said, putting yourself out there, I think it showed a lot of courage from you just to go out on a limb and try to do this handball thing that no one's really ever done before over here in America. And I think, for all the professional people listening out there, like Joey said, you got to be bold and take risk and, buy insurance to mitigate that risk from me.
My TDA.
But in all seriousness, putting yourself out there and doing stuff that you like and being bold about it, I think is super important. I think, Joe, you've really done a good job of sticking to your guns and showing that in your young professional career here. Another question I wanted to ask you is where, leading up to the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles, it's only 2020 right now. What do you see these next 8 years kind of playing out in the handball space? What's kind of the evolution, do you think?
Oh man, I gotta watch what I say here because yeah, I've been known to be a little bit of a lightning rod for my opinion on this subject. But that's a great question. And again, you're asking all the $1 million questions here, Dan. So well, basically, USA Team Handball, the national governing body, for the longest time was basically one of the only professional organizations in the U.S. dedicated to growing the sport. Right. Well, now there's a guy in Detroit who's working on that. So I don't see myself as a competitor to USA Team Handball. However, right now they don't have a CEO. 2 years ago, when I was in Denmark, they didn't have any employees, and so now they have two very smart, very helpful people working there. But there's still the CEO resigned this summer, and he was actually a big part of me continuing to starting the club and trying to have sort of an entrepreneurial career in handball. So I don't see anything coming from a national perspective, quite frankly. My hope is that we have a few thousand people from Detroit playing either in a rec league that we're running or, through our youth league. And we can send 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 to 15 of our Detroit players, whether they're adults right now or kids, to Europe to get professional contracts or just to train for a bit and have them become professionals. Because right now, if nobody's going to work on this, then the way it's going to play out, Dan, is them being USA Team Handball are going to go throughout Europe and look for people who had an American grandparent or like an American parent. And so there's a lot of dual citizens right now who are on the national team, and those guys will have a great opportunity to play in the Olympics and represent Team USA. But then they'll just go back to their homes in Germany or Poland, wherever they're from, and then nothing will happen in the U.S. and the sport will just continue to be nothing. So hopefully, I have a lot of friends who are dual citizens who will be likely playing on that team, but I hope we have more homegrown, Detroit-grown players representing the U.S. so that they can come back and not just share their experience about being an Olympian, but share their passion for the sport and create a career beyond being a player and just develop more of those organizations beyond the school so that more kids can play.
Do you ever see handball becoming like a collegiate sport?
Yes. I think at the level of ultimate frisbee or a rugby right now, there are a smattering of clubs throughout the U.S., but the way those are run and founded are basically kind of like me. So when I went to college, like I wanted to play handball, so I got a couple of my frat buddies and we went to some tournaments, and then I graduated and now nobody at all is playing handball. And that's how it is for 99% of the schools except for West Point and Air Force. Those guys have like established programs. Oh, West Point, Air Force, Ohio State, because the guy who started it stayed in Columbus and is very involved still. It's a good friend of mine. And then North Carolina. Beyond those four, it's a very fly-by-night system currently, but I think as the sport grows and maybe after the Olympics, more people will want to start clubs, and hopefully there will be more of an infrastructure there.
Yeah, that would be cool, man. For the people who, like me, my athletic career I thought was over, but now I'm going to pursue my 2028 handball Olympic career.
Yeah.
How do I get started playing in Detroit?
Email Detroit Handball Club at gmail.com. I'll email you back probably within an hour, if not a day at the latest. And I will get you connected. So we practice every Sunday morning at 10:30 in Hamtramck. There's a park out there that has a nice setup for us. And then on Wednesday nights, we do what is called the Detroit Handball League, which is we took our team and broke it into two different teams. And so we're playing sort of a 7-game series to just keep things competitive and get some game experience. So we've had guys who their very first time touching handball was in a game, and now they're like absolute studs. Like our guy from the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
The dude scored 6 goals in his first game, and like I'm going to try to get him over to Europe. So like if you want to have at the worst a fun time playing a new sport, or at the best if you want to try to see the world a little bit and maybe carve out a little side hustle career for yourself, reach out and we will make stuff happen for you.
That's awesome.
I'm talking directly to you, Dan. All right.
I'm about to send you an email right when we get done recording this, man. You better watch out. I'm about to send heaters in the net. Does that handball fit in my lacrosse stick by chance?
we could squeeze it in there. Lacrosse, dude. Lacrosse and handball. If you're a lacrosse player, like it's like riding a bike. It's the same like movements. It's the same pretty much strategy. Similar level of physicality. You can get in people's field.
That was my next question. Like, what's the contact level?
So it's honestly, I think lacrosse is probably the best example because you can like hug people like face to face. If they're to your side or if they're behind you, then you can't touch them.
Can't hit them in the back.
Yeah, exactly. So like if I'm like, playing a little LSM on you, like I'll throw a little checks to your face, but as soon as you get by me, can't touch you. So It's a fun game.
All right. It sounds like a little basketball defense in there too then.
A little bit, except a little more manly.
Okay. All right, Joe. I think that's awesome stuff. What about social media? Where can they find the Detroit Handball?
So it's either just type in at Detroit Handball on either Twitter or Instagram, and we will pop up. This is really bad, but I don't know if our full handle is Detroit. Okay, at Detroit Handball Club. So at Detroit Handball Club on Twitter or Instagram. Again, DetroitHandball.com is our website. You can look up a little more information on YouTube. We have several videos. But yeah, mostly just email me and I can get you set up.
Awesome. All right, Joe, to close it out, we always got to end with one tip you have for professional people out there.
Oh man. This is hold on one second. I'm sorry. I want to give a good one here. So let's see. I'm a bad person to ask for this type of advice because I'm probably not a professional person, but life's too short to really to get down. If you're passionate about something and you're willing to sacrifice for that, ultimately that's a noble thing to do. Whether you're financially successful or not. Okay, you know what? I had to sort of talk myself into this. So this is a quote from my mom. All right. So I shall pass this way but once. Therefore, any kindness or good I should show to another person or do in this world, let me do it now, for I shall not pass this way again. That's my piece of advice from Mrs. Williams.
Beautiful quote from a beautiful lady. Thanks so much for coming on, Joe. Really appreciate you sharing all of your wisdom and experiences. And all of you people out there, go out and play some handball. Get in touch with Joe, all right?
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much, man. Keep up the great work. This is a great podcast, great thing you're doing.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it professional, people.